will stand in our way.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
I will finish what you started.
Who are you?
I'm no one. There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it.
The Force. It's calling to you.
My Nerd World.
Just let it in.
It is My Nerd World, the Star Wars show. I'm your host, Jon Justice. Took last week off. Long weekend. Decided to give myself a break from podcasting. Plus, there wasn't a lot going on in the world of Star Wars. Got a few items I want to talk about this week. Leia's original dress was found. Really interesting story. Taika Waititi talks about writing his new film, which oddly was not on the list of the 3 films that were talked about during Star Wars Celebration. But since Celebration, the release of Visions, things have been fairly quiet in the Star Wars universe. And I'm looking forward to new content. It'll be interesting to see with the passing, the sudden passing of one of the actors in the Ahsoka series. That was talked about quite a bit over the course of the past few weeks. Ray Stevenson had passed away suddenly. I do not believe they've listed a cause of death for him yet, but he was playing one of the villains in the Ahsoka series. Things have been relatively quiet. Not a huge surprise. I know Lucasfilm's focusing on promotion for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, of which I am cautiously optimistic about. Funny story, I went to purchase my tickets yesterday, and I'm an AMC A Plus or AMC Plus member, and decided to sit down and actually get tickets for a bunch of new movies coming out. So we've got the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie coming out this weekend. We've got Transformers on the way, The Flash, which I'm looking forward to seeing. And then when I finally got to where I wanted to purchase tickets for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny at the end of June, the the AMC app was giving me fits, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I kept going back, and it kept canceling out, and I kept getting errors. I'm like, what is happening? Well, I finally realized that you're only allowed to purchase and reserve tickets for 3 films at a time. I don't know how much time I ended up wasting on that. I hope I don't end up wasting time going to the theater to see Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. The reviews on that film, as we do sort of a Star Wars and more discussion here on the podcast, the reviews on that have been a bit mixed, which is, I don't know, it's a little surprising, but it's not surprising. So I've got a lot of faith in James Mangold. I like him quite a bit as a director. Ford versus Ferrari, apart from non-science fiction films, is one of my favorite movies of the past 5 years. Infinitely rewatchable and just a fantastic film. Also did Logan, which I appreciated and enjoyed quite a bit. He also did Wolverine. Now, Wolverine I liked. I did like Wolverine, and I've watched Wolverine and will continue to rewatch Wolverine. But those 3 films show that when it comes to James Mangold, he's kind of capable of creating and directing different styles of films, which is either good or bad. Like, if I get the James Mangold for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, I kind of want the Ford versus Ferrari guy in terms of his pacing and storytelling, even though that's based off of a true story, and Indiana Jones clearly is not. What we're hearing about the movie is that it's kind of one of those films, and I've only heard people discuss movies in this way as of late, even though it's an obvious way to describe a film, but a film driven more by scenes than story. This scene leading to this scene, leading to this scene, and as opposed to a film that's more fleshed out, where we kind of stay in one location and play around in that spot for a while. I would describe, say, The Rise of Skywalker as a film that's driven by scene, by scene, by scene, and I think this is something that J.J. Abrams does quite well, and which one of the things that makes his films rewatchable, in my opinion. Mission Impossible 3 being another example. Whereas Ford versus Ferrari is less so a movie driven scene by scene by scene, where it's scene forward focused. what I'm hearing about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is that it's more of a driven by scenes moving forward, which may, in my opinion, as it relates to an Indiana Jones movie, may lend itself well to the storytelling. I'm a little cautious about the subject matter in and of itself, being the Dial of Destiny. But then I say that, and I kind of go, Dial of Destiny, that's weird. Well, at least it's not the alien, the crystal skull, right, which was odd. My favorite MacGuffins were obviously the Holy Grail and the Ark. Temple of Doom and the Shankara Stones, less so, even though I enjoy that film quite a bit. So, Dial of Destiny falls more into the Crystal Skull category, in my opinion, than the Holy Grail or the Lost Ark. So, the Ark of the Covenant. So there you go. I don't know what to expect. I just hope it's good. I remember, and just one more story, and we'll actually get to Star Wars items, I promise. But I did say this was Star Wars and more this week. I remember as a kid when Raiders of the Lost Ark came out, and the original poster that just had Indiana Jones, mostly it was just dominated by Indiana Jones with some small scenes in the background. I think it was a Drew Struzan piece of art. But the title Raiders of the Lost Ark, I remember, I just thought that was one of the coolest things ever. Now, that was a time in my life when I was surrounded by and with Star Wars. That was the thing, that nothing was bigger in my life than Star Wars at that point in time. But just the title Raiders of the Lost Ark, I hadn't heard Raiders attached to anything apart from football, and I wasn't big into football when I was a kid. So I just remember that Raiders of the Lost Ark to me was just like, whoa, what is that? What are Raiders? That sounds awesome. I like the title better that way, too, than Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. I just like Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's kind of like the original Star Wars, right? All right, so speaking of Star Wars, I suppose I should actually talk at least a little bit about Star Wars. Well, as Luke says often,
This is not going to go the way you think.
All right, first off, let's get to a couple of news items. Natalie Portman, in an interview recently, of course, played Padme Amidala, mentioned that her willingness to do Star Wars again. Now, history, if it's any indication, has often shown that when somebody goes and makes a comment like, I'm willing to do Star Wars again, but they haven't asked me to do anything, a lot of times that means they've talked to somebody about doing something. Now, what that would be, obviously, I don't know. Spoiler alert, in terms of the timeline, you'd have to go back quite a bit because Padme died at an early age from a broken heart, depending on what your headcanon is. So, unless that didn't happen, which is always possible, we did see her pretty dead in Revenge of the Sith. Again, spoiler alert. So I suppose you could do something within that timeline, but you'd have to not de-age her that much. Natalie Portman looks very well for being older. It's been quite a bit of time since those movies have come out. But she did mention a willingness to do Star Wars again. So in what way, I have no idea, but never put it past Lucasfilm to go and de-age somebody. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny probably being the most recent or soon-to-be example. There is a movie edit done by an independent producer available of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Kai Patterson has done a 2-hour-ish movie edit of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, even going and enhancing some of the effects of the TV show. I have not had a chance to watch it yet, but I am really looking forward to. The trailer looked fantastic of what I saw online, so I've definitely got that on my watch list. Probably one of the biggest news items to come out this week, and I pulled this from Bespin Bulletin, was in an interview with a Hollywood Reporter, Taika Waititi was asked about his long-in-development Star Wars feature with a bevy of other projects his name has been attached to. Regarding his long-overdue Star Wars flick, Waititi confirmed to the outlet that he's still working on the highly anticipated project, saying that I've got a really good idea for it. It's just with all films. It's the middle part. You're like, what's going to happen? And then you look at all of those Star Wars films that are so great, and you're like, well, I guess they can't meet a smuggler with an alien sidekick. Kathleen Kennedy had recently come out and made a similar comment as it relates to Taika Waititi's potential movie, saying that there was the third act that they were still working on. So it sounds like there's a second act leading into a third act issue on this. I don't know. That has me, for what it's worth, who knows when that movie is going to come out, based off of the fact that they announced the three other ones, the Phantom Menace, Inception of the Jedi film, Dave Filoni's movie, set in the Mandoverse, and then the post The Rise of Skywalker movie. It would sound like Taika Waititi's film would be well after all three of those. And at this rate, if we get a movie in 2025, I mean, it's going to be, 6 years since the release of the Rise of Skywalker. Be that as it may, I'm not holding my breath anytime soon for Taika Waititi's film. But as it relates to his comments about, trying to figure out the middle part, I don't know. It's pretty bold to go and say something, to make a comment like that. It makes me wonder what the story is. He says he has a really good story, but he just can't figure the middle part of the story out. So who knows? Like I said, I'm not holding my breath, and at this point in time, we don't even have firm release dates for any of these movies, and it's a bummer, man. I want to talk about future Star Wars stuff, and I want to see Star Wars back on the big screen. And with the writer's strike going on right now, I know that a lot of these things are going to continue to be delayed, and I know beggars can't be choosers. We're getting more Star Wars content later this year with the Ahsoka series, and and also Skeleton Crew, which I'm looking forward to as well. I just want to see my beloved Star Wars back on the big screen. Speaking of Star Wars, older Wars back on the big screen, something that made an appearance on the big screen that everybody thought was lost has now been found.
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
For most of the last 45 years, apart from a brief appearance at a costume party in which it was ripped and had food, wine, and blood spilled on it, Princess Leia's white dress from the final scene of Star Wars was lying crunched up in a plastic bag in a London home. Now, faithfully restored, the iconic gown is going up for auction for the first time, and it's expected to fetch at least $2 million. Not everything can be wrong in the world. The Princess Leia's dress going back to 1977 and New Hope can still fetch $2 million. It's the only Princess Leia outfit from that film which has ever been discovered, it is said, of the medieval-style dress. When I first was told about the dress, I simply couldn't believe it, props collector Stephen Lane told the Post. I've been collecting for 30 years, and I think it's one of the most exciting finds of my career. It had been kept by a member of the British crew as a memento. While many of the other costumes from the film were thrown away, Lane had given a tip about the dress by a fellow collector 10 years ago. Collectors had been searching for nearly 40 years, and everyone had come to the conclusion that it didn't exist anymore. No one had found any Princess Leia costumes, he recalled. And then I went to meet the former crew member, and hanging out the back door of his office was this ratty old plastic bag, and balled up in the bottom of the plastic bag was this dress. It was in really poor condition, but instantly recognizable, partly because of the belt. It all came out grubby and torn, but it was astonishing because it was clear it was the real thing. The silk dress was designed by John Molo, who won an Oscar for the film, and made by leading costume house Bermans and Nathans in conjunction with a French dressmaker. The script described Leia's vision. Leia was a vision in white, as the director and writer George Lucas wanted her to symbolize purity. As the movie was not expected to be a hit, many crew members took items home after it finished filming at Pinewood Studios. For decades, the dress gathered cobwebs as crew members' loft, in the crew members' loft, until it was worn and badly damaged by a friend who borrowed it for a costume party. The first thing Lane did when he got the dress was take it to a professional restorer, Janine Lightfoot, which was recommended by the Victoria and Albert Museum. They were used to working with tapestries that are hundreds of years old, and are experts when it comes to textile conservation. BA's part of the process. They had to analyze all the marks on the garment and found food, wine, and even blood. We all did wonder, what kind of party was this? The dress was also ripped. It has sort of cover that goes over the arms and a little restrictive as it stops you from raising your arms over the shoulder height. But whoever wore it at the party must have waved their arms around because it was all torn. All told, the dress needed a 10-month restoration project. It was a process costing thousands of dollars. At the time, Lane sold the dress to a private collection. It's now the centerpiece of a multi-million-dollar movie auction organized by Stevens Prop Store in Los Angeles next month and is valued between $1 million and $2 million, so it could go for much more than that. The most expensive dress ever sold is Marilyn Monroe's white subway great dress from 1955's The 7-Year Itch. That went for $4.6 million back in 2011. Other items for sale online and in person at the 3-day auction include the Bat-Pod vehicle from 2008's film The Dark Knight, which could also fetch $2 million, costumes from Gladiator and Blade Runner, and the clown doll from Poltergeist, which is estimated to go for $400,000. So, just fascinating piece of memorabilia, and it'll be interesting to see just how much that dress ends up selling for. That wraps up the show for this week. Hope you enjoyed it. Any more Star Wars news, and we'll get to it on next week's episode. As always, if you want to email me, talkshownerd@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment up on YouTube. And, of course, if you're looking to support my nerd world, pick up your preferred copy of my EMBARK science fiction space opera series. Follow a ragtag squadron of pilots and one reluctant hero on a journey of survival from Earth to the far reaches of space as they fight for humanity's future among the stars. 7 books in the series, written for adults, but great for kids. Has a teen young adult edge to it. Safe for young readers 11 and older. 7 books in all in the series, available in ebook, paperback, audiobook, and hardcover, and of course free on Kindle Unlimited. Thank you so much for checking out this week's show. As always, I hope wherever you are happy, you're healthy, and you are safe. We'll talk to you then. Bye.
The Force will be with you, always.
My nerd world.